welcome to the Kaizen Godan Dojo. It's an honor to host this event for you all. And hopefully this will be a continuous relationship. Come on up here, Sensei. It's an honor, it's a pleasure. The idea of Kaizen means continuous progression, and I'm willing to learn from anyone and anyone. I don't care what rank, I don't care what style. That's what karate is all about, it's exchanging ideas. The original founders of Goju actually went out and studied Chinese arts and different perspectives and different ideas and put it all together to make Goju. It's the same thing with all the other styles. And style it's a misnomer because there's only one way or so many different ways that the body can move, right? And we all know those ways from different styles, but it all moves the same way. So the idea is to exchange principles, philosophies, ideas, so that we can adapt to our style. That's why it's Kaizen, continuous progression. You can't have continuous progression if you're going to close yourself out and leave it at that. Okay? But now I'm turning the dojo over to Sensei Jose Otero. And it is his show and Joe Johnson, of course. It's their show, and we are going to be just spectators and participants.
Okay? Thank you. Thank you all for being here. You know, I started taking karate when I was a kid, 35 years ago, and in Erie, Pennsylvania. And so during that era, even as a kid, I realized that there's a lot of fighting amongst the different dojos, or a lot of name calling and trash talking. I kind of was brought up in that same kind of era, and I probably did a little bit of it myself as I got into the black belt ranks, because it was just like how things were done. You go and you say, my dojo is the best, and these other people don't know what they're doing. Right? But over time, it actually very much thankful to Joseph's grandmother. She was a wonderful woman, and she came as an older person to come and learn karate from me, but I learned so much more from her. And one of the things that she started doing is just saying, hey, well, if we have a seminar at the dojo, then afterwards we have food and drink and everything else. And she really helped to open my eyes to the idea of exactly what Sensei was saying about, hey, we're all in the same team in a sense, because we're all trying to improve ourselves, and we all love the martial arts. And so instead of trash talking people because they do something different, or even if you think that that technique doesn't look as good as somebody else's technique, it's really just about this family attitude about the martial arts. We're all in here together to learn. And so over time, when I had my dojo in Erie, we did build up that kind of community. And then as things, and Darren Italiani kind of kept that going with his dojo when he had it. But then as those things kind of fade off, we've lost kind of contact with the dojos here. And this is like at least one kind of partial effort to make sure that we keep that kind of feeling together. And I know Joe has mentioned that, hey, we'll do this, and then maybe sometime next year we'll do it again. If people want to do something, we'll have different instructors volunteer to teach something, and maybe we can just have that sense of community again, so that or at least to maintain that sense of community. Okay? It's good to go out and do tournaments and compete against each other, but at the end, we're all doing the same thing. So anyway, I don't want to take up too much time with speaking. I teach at a university, so you know how professors are. They got into that job so they can pontificate. And so I didn't bring my official soapbox, but that's exactly what teachers like to do. Okay, so right now, what do you have planned for us to loosen up, and then we're going to start with Mike?
Yeah,
is that correct?
Mike's first, then Ryan Coons, Darren, and ready to back clean.
Okay. I think we're ready to go. So,
Thank you. So, I'm Mike Zielinski. I'm one of Sensei Otero's students. I thought for my time, I'd like to first just kind of give a little bit about what I've done over the last like 12, 15 years, because I haven't seen a lot of you guys for a long time. And then I wanted to talk about some of the things that I've done more recently with Shito-ryu karate and some nagiwaza, which is like the throwing techniques, and bunkai for some of the beginning katas that they have. And then that would be about it. So, for the last like 12 years, I was teaching a class at Edinboro University for a little while. While I was doing that, I was going out to Union City, learning from Master Capella about once a week for about a year and a half, 2 years. Then I moved up to Burlington, Vermont, started my own club up there, was taking Aikido, Jiu-Jitsu. Then I ended up getting a back injury. It was pretty bad. So that kind of took me out for just a couple of years, about 3 years. During that time, I was doing a lot of research, a lot of like reading, really became just a karate nerd. Reading all about the history of like Japanese martial arts, Okinawa martial arts. Really started to understand where all this stuff comes from. That started to kind of get me down some different rabbit holes, made me start to really look for what I wanted to be as a martial artist. I met Sensei Eddie, and with my back injury, he taught me the Sanshin kata. That like totally aligned with my PT stuff. And then ended up in Burlington helping out with a club that was Shito-ryu karate, which was a style formed by this guy named Mabuni Kenwa, who in Okinawa really collected like all the katas. So that style has like an insane amount of katas from all the different teachers at that time, from Gichin Funakoshi, Chojin Miyagi. Like he just went everywhere, collected them, then went to Japan, and with Gichin Funakoshi started to sell karate as like a nationalistic activity. But the difference is, I think Shito-ryu kind of sticks a little bit more to the Okinawan kind of, it looks more Okinawan, so the stances look a little different. Where Shotokan has a lot of influence from Funakoshi's son. That's really where deep stances come from. Before that, before like the 1920s, all the styles had very short stances. Like front stance was only here. And so that was something that drew me to Shito-ryu, is it had some of those roots in Okinawan karate, kind of stuck to that tradition. And I was working, this particular club was all Bhutanese refugees, so these were people kicked out of their home in Bhutan, forced to go to India in refugee camps, eventually came over to the States. They have clubs all over, Harrisburg, Pittsburgh, Burlington. They're all over the country now, and they're really creating like a community martial arts. It was really an honor to be a part of that. Recently, I just moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, so starting all over again. And about 3 weeks ago, I just joined an Uichi-ryu karate dojo, which is similar to Goju-ryu. So, the first few katas that you learn in Shito-ryu, like a lot of the Japanese styles, are the Heian series, so the 5 Heian katas. I think most of us are familiar with Heian 4, and Yodan, it's the one that starts here. And as I was learning this in Shito-ryu, I saw that the bunkai for these techniques don't really match up with what the kata does. So if you type in YouTube and you go to Shito-ryu, Hand Yodan Bunkai, or Shotokan Hand Yodan Bunkai, you're going to see something that looks kind of like this. Over here, like something a little bit different, right? And some of the things that I've realized, or that I've started thinking about, as I kind of dug into the history of martial arts, is these katas didn't start out with big front stances. So when I practice kata and I practice bunkai, very rarely do I envision or practice with my partner stepping back to here. Most times, if I know it's going to be a punch, I start from here and I'm trying to practice off just a front foot punch. Because I don't know how many people are going to line up here to throw that punch if you're outside of the school. Not very many. So, a little bit of Aikido influence, Jutsu influence, and also kind of the flow of the kata. These are all things that I was thinking about. So, let's start right here.
Are you gonna need mats?
I'm not going to need a mat for this part. No.
Just thinking, I don't want him to break my foot.
I can take it. I don't know. So, this very first technique, here, thinking about it, like, what could this be? And then it clicked one day when I was in Aikido class. So, if you want to do a front foot punch, just like this, right? I've done this move before. That looks very familiar. But then I'm thinking, like, okay, so what about the next part, that next piece? And then I'm thinking, if this guy wants to hit me, and I come here, he's going to follow up with that next hand. I'm here. The next part of the kata. And the next part. That all transitions into a really smooth, nice set of throws. So for our first part, let's try that. All right, call your partner, please. All right, so the person that's going to punch, I want you to try, I guess the best way I can describe it is more like a boxer's stance, right? Yeah. Front foot, you want the outside of the foot pointing forward, so the big toe is just kind of like slightly in. Back foot, you just want pointing straight, big toe straight. And then hands up in your guard. And the strike that you're going to do is going to be just a front foot punch. So you're going to step with that front foot, aim right for the chin. Okay. And the person doing the kata, you're just going to be in a ready stance, kind of a relaxed stance. So let's do the first move on your own, or all together. I'm sorry.
Opposite on your own?
Yeah.
What side are you punching? Are you punching?
All right. So
Joe's side.
nice and slow. Punch. Your hand's going to come up. You want the right hand kind of coming up towards the tricep, above the elbow. The other hand comes up under the wrist, and you don't have to grab. If you grab, you're probably doing it wrong. Because then you're just going to roll. And then let's reset. Let's try again. Same person. Let's try to make it nice and smooth. One more time. Strike. There you go. Yes. And again, strike. Draw that foot in the All right, this time. The person punching is going to regain their balance. So they're probably going to need to step with their right foot. And they're going to try to do a left reverse punch, right reverse punch, back to the chin. Okay? So step. Step over. Yeah. And then two here, when you're at this point, your left hand, you really want to put that pressure towards the elbow. You don't want to grab here. You want that, I'm sorry, at the shoulder. pressure at the shoulder. You want to trap his hand to the hip. And then the one at the hip turns into a fist, straight to the neck. And then you grab, hit. Okay, so let's try to break it down as we move to it. All at once. Did you want to try it?
It's like an upside down punch.
Go back a little bit.
He's just like this.
I was missing that last bit. I was missing the last bit.
I only saw you in the scene. You're gonna make some more room.
We can't.
So you want to actually. So in this part, he's in here.
It's got a grab.
This comes right here. Grab. Left spot.
Breathe.
Grab our
I felt
must be good.
So there's hand. I'm going to transition to another kata. We're actually going to go backwards. Hand Sandan, hand 3. And I did not like this kata when I learned it. I really didn't like it. I'll run through it really quick. It's not a very long kata. And then I want to explain one part and then try to wrap my mind around what this could be. That's the whole. When I did these moves, I was like, man, that's weird. And I did look online to see what the bunkai was. And what I found first was this. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me. So then I started to look, like katas just like to repeat sometimes. So I looked at the very first movement of that kata. And trying to think, like, all right, maybe some nagiwaza in there. And it clicked. It was like, oh, I do know that move. So I can actually do this one just if he's static, kind of in a ready stance. I can start with that. It comes in, punch, and then I go here. The punch is here or here. So I'm just grabbing his, here, let's go ahead and angle. Step away, Joe. Hip throw. Oh, that's pretty cool. I get that. I can get behind that. What the other two are, I don't know. I think we all know hip throw. So, but we can try it just from the kata perspective. The next move is stepping here. I haven't figured that out. I'll be honest. So, but that's saying you can't do it down. There's nothing saying you can't modify it down. I mean, if you look on some of these like official bunkai put out by JKA and stuff, I mean, they're modifying all kinds of stuff. It doesn't look like anything like the kata. So let's find.
Can you do the hand move again?
Sure.
Just reserve.
Oh, it was this hand punching. So that one goes around the arm. See here. So this hand is shooting behind. This one's grabbing and coming. Okay. So it's a right step, punch, slide behind. So you really want to get in close. The left hand's going to grab the arm, step it, and then if we can finish the hip throw region.
Just be careful with my concrete floor, please.
All right. Find a new partner. Let's give it a try.
New partner, huh?
Let's try it together once so that we're just on the same page.
What side?
Okay. So my partner is going to just stand in a ready stance for now. I mean, we can do hip throws, this technique off can be in a lot of different positions. Just for the sake of practice, we'll do it from here. My side will be in a left front stance. We're going to throw a right punch, pass, grab his left hand, and then pivot. And then we can finish our throw. This one
You're not set properly.
Down, gently,
question.
No, no.
I couldn't talk to you. Right.
You can try it on your own. So go back and forth.
Okay.
All right.
Sure. And here,
One more minute. Make sure everybody gets a turn. So, I think I have 5 minutes left with my time, and I have a challenge for everybody. Thinking about Nagewaza, thinking about changing up your attack, thinking about what your motion could be. A lot of our katas, well, some of our katas have moves where we go like this. There are also variations where they come up to here. Work with your partner for about 4 minutes. See what you can come up with. Make it a throw. And then we'll come back together and share ideas. So that one. So you can either do it in a crane stance or not a crane stance. Yeah. All right. Okay. Go ahead.
Let me show you what it is.
The only thing I can think of. She can show us right there.
Okay.
So
Sweep the foot at the same time, push, pull.
Okay, and so you let go and
Well, not
let
really.
her drop.
Yeah, it'll just be, she'd spin in the air.
Okay, I like that. Anybody else?
Sure, Carter.
Sorry. That's pretty good. Okay. So, when I thought about this one, I was really thinking like Okinawan karate with their short stances and just a lot of the way they move. Okinawan karate doesn't have any back stances. There's no stepping back. The closest thing they have is tiger stance, right? There's no cats in karate, it's tiger. Because you want to be pushing forward. Right? And so when I was thinking about that and thinking about like, if my stance is close, that means I'm fighting people here. So this hand, I'm putting pressure on the other opponent. This hand comes up, this one down. That's my stance.
Did you get a knee strike in there or just?
I did? Yes, you did. Yeah. So it all depends on.
Did you hurt him? I hope you hurt him.
Depends on the situation, right? Yeah. So some katas come up and knee, and I'm in my stance. Some katas might want to throw the person right in front of you. So now I'm in full side facing. So I'm out of time. I wanted to just share, like, thinking about your katas, think about all these other techniques, and honestly, the same thing that Sensei Burgos, Sensei Otero was saying in the beginning. All of this type of thinking is because I've done Aikido, Jiu-Jitsu, Shito-ryu, now Uichi-ryu. Like, all those experiences just give you way more knowledge.